apparently we got
Recording?
for the Zoom somehow got disconnected during the
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank
so-
you. You're the next
That's
one.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stay dry.
Thank you.
You're not staying for the rest?
I'm going to
She's
Regional
gonna-
Fire Hall. They're doing a practice tonight, so.
And Brenda was already in town once today.
Yeah, she's ready to go.
Yeah, I went and paid for my window, I
That's
went to the
right.
drugstore, I went to the grocery store.
Did you get
And
your
I-
mail?
And I, no, I forgot my mail, and I
No,
forgot that the meat
no,
market was
it's
closed on Monday.
disconnected.
Yeah.
And I don't have any idea when it has
But that's
connected.
Actually, I get my mail in Alex.
Oh, okay. Do you?
I do, I get my mail in Alex, my phone is Mir. And I do most of my shopping here, I'm kind of a displaced person.
Here has a post office, though, right?
Yeah, it does, but I'm too lazy to change my address,
Got it.
just being honest. Okay.
Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you.
Moving right along. Item number 6, our water bylaw. Second and third reading. Thank you, Brian. Discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Do we feel like moving on to third reading?
I don't know how to do these things. Are you supposed to?
You just move, move third reading.
Unless there is
We don't have
additional
to do it.
questions, because there's opportunity for discussions. still,
Yeah.
too,
Is that would be right now, right?
If they
That's
chose
what's
to.
there.
Same person to do this. Thank you, Brian. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Yeah, it doesn't matter though, it's not a recorded vote.
You just,
Okay,
who made the motion?
okay. I'm learning.
New and unfinished business, interim municipal development plan review.
So the town has an intermunicipal development plan with Camrose County. The province has required municipalities to have these plans to support development in proximity to each municipality. And we had just kind of, between Anya and I have reviewed the plan. There's a few minor spelling and grammar areas. The general intent of the plan hasn't changed. And there hasn't been any development pressure or developments occurring in the impacted areas that are just outside of town or within town that we have to interact on. There's terminology updates where it used to be municipal government board, where now it's land and property rights tribunal. And then the map with the future land use concept. So on the south side of Highway 53, we just kind of have a chunk of land in that area, but we weren't really sure at this point in time of what we would potentially propose in that area. So, but there's no substantive changes, and it's in line with the intent of the operations. And basically the recommendation is to state the plan will be reviewed in another 5 years, unless something comes up where it's developed in those areas, then we would bring it forward. And so with Anya and myself, we typically process the development permits, and anytime there is a development adjacency to the town, we get notified of it. Or there's some that we're in proximity to, like, for example, our lagoon, like there's a couple of gravel pits in proximity to our lagoon. So in the past, we've basically submitted a letter saying, hey, we're fine with this proceeding. However, we have concerns where does the mining at the gravel pit going to impact the functionality of our lagoon or stability of our lagoon because of its proximity, and they didn't seem that was going to be an issue. So,
Is the lagoon inside town limits?
no, it is not.
So do we have to get a development permit to do the upgrades out there from the county? Oh, okay. I just
Well, there
wondered if
was
the
no
county would have to
change, right?
Notify us of our application.
And like there was no like change because it's pre-existing. And I know initially on the ICIP or the Infrastructure Canada planning, they were kind of calling for Indigenous engagement and stuff to ensure. But that lagoon has been in operation since 1980s, so they let us get off the hook on that one.
And it's an
So-
alkali slough to begin with before that, so the indigenous were probably smart enough to stay away from
I
it.
was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. So with the findings within the document, or this is a planning document, so it would require public engagement and public hearing and advertising. So any type of revision would require advertising and engagement. So at this point in time, there's nothing really of any substance to warrant.
Anybody have any other questions?
I have two technical questions. The first one, sections 2.3.3B, 2.52, and 2.65 all relate to water and sanitary lines that may be extended into the county. I'm just wondering if 1221 factors into this in any way, as in are these sections relevant and pertinent? Are they able to be deleted? Like how would, like I don't understand the intent of these sections.
So specific to water and sewer lines, it would be developer funded.
Okay,
So anytime we have an expansion outside of the community, or let's say hypothetically within our industrial park over there, it's usually the developer that foots the bill on any additional water. And so when they reference that in this document, it's targeted more along the lines of a distribution system and piping that way versus additional piping with the commission. So the commission has main point of entries being to our reservoir. And so that's the primary entry point. They wouldn't have any dictation specific within our municipal boundaries, other than our agreement states we're not allowed to do cross connections.
okay. My second technical question, section 2.3.7 references the old landfill and its status, particularly with respect to reclamation of it. I guess my question is it not reclaimed now? Does it not meet that requirement, given that it's a public park?
I'm happy to say, ironically, I went hunting for this document today, and I'm happy to say that I do have a reclamation certificate. So it is confirmed, reclaimed, and by acceptable standards of Alberta environment.
Excellent.
We still have to take samples every year, though.
I believe it may be a requirement.
Landfill. Perfect, thank you.
Anybody else?
I will accept. Move to accept the-
Thank you, Brian. As presented. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
That's why I think it's good. I feel like the really close.
Is it 3 for 1?
7.2, Bashaw Social Center Financials.
I never knew that was the name of it. That's just social center.
I'm just going by, I have a mixed bunch of names going on.
Yeah.
One document says Bashaw Social Center, another says Community
Yes.
Hall Board. So, and I don't know specifically if they have well, I imagine being a society, they would.
They will have it, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess some point in time I should confirm with them what it actually
one it
is and be consistent with it.
Mr. Chair, the financials look to be in order to me, so I would move we accept the Bashaw Social Center financials as presented.
Thank you, Connor. All in favor? Carried. 7.3, FCSS funding.
So should I be removing myself from this conversation, or do I just
I-
not vote?
I think in some of our discussions, we determined that you weren't you're a manager, but not a director
Right.
within the.
Yeah.
And again, there's another name of clarification. I'm running into them all over, where the Bashaw Youth Foundation has a different name now or something, and
Yeah.
then Bashaw District Support Services. And so I guess with your being involved with adult learning, that is in the same building, but really is not the same organization, as I understand
That's
it.
true, but sometimes I have contracts with BDSS,
Okay.
sometimes, so,
Does this FCSS funding ever pay your salary?
no,
Then it's not a problem.
no, it definitely doesn't. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Follow the money.
That is true. I would have known that if I thought about that, yeah.
So, sorry.
Mine would come out of grants, not this. Go ahead.
With the funding breakdown, we're scheduled to receive 24,554 from the province. And we typically contribute 6,139, which is the annual obligation based on the funding agreement with the province of Alberta. Council could opt to increase the 6,139. However, in doing so, it would be funded through tax dollars. And then the Camrose County, their payment, which has already been received as of January, was $27,756.89. And so the total is $58,449.89. And so the funding breakdowns provided last year are below, and then the requested amounts. And both organizations have provided their budget and outcome information. And council has the authority to determine the contribution amounts. And this one, I have done research in the past trying to determine what is the best or fair way to break it down. I looked at program comparison, I looked at hours, and then I also kind of touched base with cameras and district support services, and they actually have a separate board and policies and procedure that they consider these applications in. But really, nobody had any concrete feedback on how they determine the funding breakdowns. And as for like additional applicants within the community, these funds have just simply been divided up between the social related services in the community. If council wanted to open it up to additional.
They're a third, what it used to get, like just a little.
Actually, there was a one time. I can't remember what it was, but that was years ago.
When I submitted the question via email, part of my query was something like the Bashaw Area Rec Board. Would it, for instance, be an eligible or are there groups like that that might be?
I want to say it was the bus society, but I have no confidence in that being the right answer. And it was like $500.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a municipal.
Yeah.
Well, and we do have other applications like being the library board and the bus. And I guess in the past, the thrift store used to submit and make requests for specific projects and stuff. So we would kind of do a blanket advertisement and request people like they would put their financial request in, give us their financials. And then, so I think it just kind of, but with the bus society and the library, we tend to offset those through the operating budget. And quite often we've been using the MSI operating for those payouts. But this has been specific to FCSS dollars or family and community support services. So social related programmings, but that's not, and the rec board, well, they also apply to Camrose County for specific policy related programming. Yeah.
So basically, the ask is between the two groups is close to 91,000, but we have 58,500 to choose how we want to divvy this out.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I, like I say, had done quite a bit of research several years ago when I first started here to see if there was any different way.
Rhyme or reason?
And yeah, with the broad expansive programming that the BDSS provides, all across all ages. And the Youth Foundation typically runs an after-school related or summer related programming. But then I think at this juncture in time, with both parties, being increased willingness to work together and stuff, I think however we allocate it, both organizations are gonna leverage the dollars to the community's best benefit anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a really positive step.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
It's exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's gonna be really good for the community.
I think this is where I can wear two hats simultaneously, though, where, I'm going to advocate that that partnership is not born without cost. And so while the youth center has had less than stellar usage over the last 2 years, basically running summer programming, there are going to be costs to enter into this partnership agreement. And so I look at the numbers and I go, no, well, 90,000 out of 58,000, I don't know how to cut that pie. But I also don't know how to cut it in a way that is fair and equitable to them. And so obviously, I don't think either is going to get what they've asked for. The question becomes who gets what and how much. And I think it's very apparent that one group does do more than the other. I can say that quite confidently. But I can say the Youth Foundation is very actively upping its game, has made the impressive move to join the Community Resource Center as contracting out staffing through BDSS as the contract provider. And of course, the partnership is a real benefit where BDSS is able to access grants and other funding to help with staffing. But ultimately, the direction the youth center is going is that within a month here, we should see close to 40 staff hours a week emerging from the Youth Foundation. So it was quite dormant for an extended period of time and certainly was able to grow its piggy bank somewhat. But the reality is that there will be things happening. I believe BDSS actually already announced some of the programming that is coming, and that will include items over spring break in just a couple of weeks. That will include Easter events, all very proudly initiated by the Youth Foundation board, maintaining a distinct identity. And so I think there could be a temptation to zero out the amount for Bashaw Youth and give the whole $58,449.89 to BDSS. But I would encourage that we don't quite zero that out. I don't know what the appropriate number is, but I would suggest that it is somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000.
Other thoughts?
I guess my thought would be closer to 5,000, given that it won't or hasn't at this point hasn't incurred any costs, hasn't been up and running. BDSS has been the whole year. This is going to be 4 months off of the calendar already, so you're only looking at 8 left. So I would tend to go to the smaller amount of 5,000. In my opinion.
Do you know, entering into this partnership, you just said that there will be costs associated with that.
Mhm.
Do you happen to know kind of rough figures at all?
Well, in that other hat that I fortunately wear,
Yeah.
The reality is the ink isn't even dry on the paper. So
Sure.
we've entered in via motion this agreement, but Christine Below is actually drafting the actual partnership. We do know that one of the items is BDSS will receive a fee for being the administrator, right? So basically, if you're aware of recent happenings, right, there's been a program facilitator position open for a number of months, but the board and its executive director parted ways. And effectively what's happening is BDSS is becoming, in essence, the executive director. So there was a range of applications that were received. The board did a number of interviews of prospective candidates, and I'll say there were some really good candidates in the mix. But already we have begun these discussions, and these discussions have been ongoing since November. I'll tell you, in the last 6 months, I've served on more board meetings for the youth center than I think I had all the other years combined, as we scratched our heads and said, how are we going to do this? Some of those meetings, of course, were in camera, so even the town rep was not invited
That's right.
to be privy to these. But in effect, the agreement right now, I would call it a handshake agreement, right? I mean, we obviously have a motion on the books. Christine actually served as our executive director at our last meeting, which you were privy to. And that's maybe not the best, you know, she's not going to be that person.
Right, she's just,
BDSS
yes.
will be. But ultimately, BDSS will get a percentage of the staffing will then be added on as a monthly bill, if you will.
Okay.
So there will be a bill to the youth center for BDSS's services. The other thing to divine here, and again, it's really unfortunate the timing on it, because I would wish that those boards were able to present this information as part of their respective proposals. So I just happen to be in a strange situation where I have a little bit more knowledge. But to be in line with BDSS, I mean, the Youth Foundation will be upping its salary range. Now, this was already a discussion that, again, in those numerous meetings in the last 6 months to get the best applicants to support the town. Quite frankly, the rates that were paid were surprisingly low. As a board member, I can't divulge what those were, but I would describe them as low. And so we'll be coming on to BDSS's pay scale as well. And so I think there's a real improvement for the town, because you're going to get yet another service provided out of the community resource center. The Youth Foundation will still operate out of the building it's in. It's received grant funding from children services to maintain the space. But ultimately, you know, there is actually going to be increased staffing costs as a result. And I actually think that's a really good thing. I think it's powerful. I think it adds more qualified people coming into this town or staying in this town rather than leaving elsewhere. But even that's kind of an unknown cost yet on what the difference will be, you know, moving to BDSS's, for lack of a better term, grid off of, again, what I would describe as a rather low payment scheme. So I don't have a dollar figure. I don't know what those numbers would be,
Sure.
but I know they're above zero.
Yeah.
And so my advocacy is an above zero amount.
A motion of some sort would help. Right? At this point.
I guess an alternate recommendation would be to like table it for the next meeting if you guys felt that there needed to be extra time to ascertain how, if the two groups were going to require
I
any
don't know
changes
that-
or.
We're gonna get that information in 2 weeks. though.
The thing is that, of course, you know, I work very closely in that building, and I don't know that the fact that the two organizations are going to partner and work together. I believe that Christine's strength is in grants and bringing in funding and that sort of thing for the programs that get delivered, and she will now be that person for Youth Foundation. So I can't imagine that it will be left without funds, and that I already know, because I'm writing one, that there's a grant that we're already putting the Youth Foundation into it. So I think that and then that funding, because the board is remaining, I assumed, I haven't talked to Christine all the details, Kyle will know way more than me, but I assume that that funding will go to the board, because to the Youth Foundation board funds, not into BDSS funds, because she keeps them very separate for their audited purposes. And so I'm then, like Kyle, I would have no idea what that's going to look like over the next year, but it will be something she will always have on her radar. I think you were at a meeting tonight, so
Yeah.
how do you feel about it?
And again, she had approximate, but I don't think I'm at liberty to
No.
give those numbers, because it was very
Yeah.
informal.
Yeah.
But I do believe, as you say, Christine is very capable of accessing grants.
Yeah, she will do a good job of that.
Good job,
Yeah.
Christine.
I think it'll be a really great partnership, because I think then the board will have a really good, because even to keep the board was kind of unique and great, because it's new people, not new people, but different people than what already exists on the board at BDSS, and so it gives a more strength and diversity, right? Diverse opinions and diverse where you're gonna go, and so I think it's gonna be a great connection together.
And this will evolve as far as what happens this year is it's just 1 year. We'll have a much better picture next year. as to
Yeah.
what,
I agree.
what the realities are.
And even the board is looking to evolve, and so right now, we typically, again, notwithstanding the last few months, it'd be 10 meetings a year, 9 to 10, and we, as a board in that other role of mine, would be looking at moving to a governance model, right? And so very likely reducing it, still having the oversight and still being that
Direction.
distinct identity, but really trusting that the executive director vis-a-vis the contractor and their staff are going to do a good job and just need guidance. And so I think that's a really interesting evolution.
So
To put something on the
to put
books.
something on the books, I'll make a motion that we split 5,000 and 53,449.89 and put it to a vote. You know, that isn't an agreement with councillors, we'll have another motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion on the motion?
It's just hard because we're at that point where there's numbers that in the coming months will be able to better, make decisions here, but, this is what we've got, this is the information we have, and this is kind of where we're at right now. I mean,
Setting these levels at this time does not preclude us from putting more money. in the
right,
pot.
and that was just gonna be what I was
And
asked,
we
is
have done that
that,
in the past.
That is, once the
If-
budget has been passed and
Yeah.
and scrutinized, if there is money left someplace.
You can put it where you want to.
Yeah. That is true.
I think the reality is, if you look at the youth center's financials, they're fairly strong for the time being. There's not a huge need for immediate reinforcements. And I can't see the executive director vis-a-vis PDSS blowing through that. I think that'd be very difficult. And so I'm very comfortable with those amounts.
Okay,
So, and they would be reflected as two separate motions, and Brian, you're making both of them?
Yes, it would.
on the first motion of 5,000 to the Bashaw Youth Foundation, all in favor? Motion is carried. And on the second motion, thank you, Brian, of 53,449.89. All in favor? Motion is carried. Number 4. Sidewalk in front of the thrift store.
Yes, and I apologize to Foreman Taylor because he has actually met with them at the thrift store and went through the challenge with them. And so realistically, he requested they consider putting an eaves trough on their building. So this picture here basically shows a big chunk of ice here. And so what's going on is the water is running down in between the two buildings. And so Holtz on the one side clearly has an eaves trough. And then on the bottom, this one here with the brick on one side and the wooden trough down the center here, that is what their solution was to control the drainage. So they're in essence directing the drainage to the front sidewalk, and therefore is running along the bottom of the building in this picture,
So that's homemade.
and then into
Sticks it past
the puddle you see here.
There's no.
And so
drainage.
basically his
And it's running
recommendation
down
to
the
them was to install eavesdropping on their building and direct the water drainage to the rear of the building. Because there's no point fixing this until the water is diverted to the back of the building and down the alley.
That is true.
I walked it last night and with an eye to exactly that, and I mean, all the water points to one spot. You
Well,
know,
and initially the CC is somewhere in vicinity there, so it could have been speculative that this was from the CC, but I don't know, did you test it for chlorine?
The CC.
No, I didn't, but if you look at the second set of pictures, you can see where the water that's coming out of the building is washing out the front of their building and undermining the concrete and the sidewalk itself, to a point where it's actually, it has holes in there now. And so it wasn't the fact that we weren't going to address it. It was the fact that I gave direction that before we could even consider doing something like this,
Had to take care of the
they
problem.
have to take care of the problem. Because what's the point? It's just going to be a continuous thing, right? And this is just one area, and she was kindly pointed out there's several spots downtown, and if you were to look at them, they're all the old buildings with very restricted drainage.
when I went out last night, it was a really interesting time to go because we had just
Yeah.
gotten a heavy snowfall, and in the top right image that you see there, basically that entire space in the bottom left was a wall of snow.
Yeah.
I mean, it banked up, it built up, and
Yeah.
of course, well, what's going to happen? I also walked both sides of the sidewalk looking for low spots, and this is by far the most prominent. Now,
Yeah.
there's a couple little ones, Cindy might be able to grow a plant in or something. And drop a pot. But honestly, my experience, and I went out in kind of the perfect storm to go
Yeah.
look, was that,
You're to blame.
well, I can be the blame. But truly, there's a lot of buildup in between the buildings.
Yeah.
The drainage is directed right to the sidewalk, which to me, one of the complaints is ice removal. I struggle with it when I think building remediation should be one of the first steps. I quite like the brick sidewalks. I think they're generally good repair.
Yeah.
They're aesthetically pleasing. And so to me, I don't see this as being a shorter medium term. data.
So the reality is, we've asked them to look at the building. Were they receptive to that?
Not really,
I
no.
think this was the response.
Yes, so it looked like, if you look at the one set of pictures, you can see that, like the first set, where the gutters are on to the left, you can see somebody went up there and nailed plywood on the rim and tried to kick it out to kind of divert the snow onto Holtz. And you can see the plywood right here. And so kind of like a diverter, but it's really not working. I think Holtz roof is also sloped, and this building here slopes to the back. So there's no drainage on there whatsoever. So really, I think, either put a diverter, a full diverter to minimize the snow load, or put some proper drainage on it, maintain it so that it doesn't cause any more or further damage to the sidewalk, and then
Then you can fix it.
we can fix it.
Yeah.
We typically would just write her a follow-up letter in response, but because this letter was addressed to council. And so therefore, I guess because council provides administration with direction by motion. You could tell me to do my job to write a letter in response to this.
Can we just say we accepted it as information?
Okay,
left it with
and-
Administration
okay.
and Public Works.
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect.
We just accepted it as.
We acknowledge.
So you would need a council member to make a motion to accept.
I
it.
think he just made it.
Okay, there we go.
Maybe somebody else should.
I feel like you've been going for so long.
Yeah,
too,
we're
just
just
catching
catching
you up.
I feel like last meeting I made all the motions.
These minutes are gonna say, who was there? Brian.
We're still being recorded, remember? Re-recorded.
All in favor of Brian's motion? Carry. And 7.5, go east. Right out west.
This had come through email and some council members were interested in it. I guess from my initial observation is that it's an advertising campaign. And so currently we support the local Bashaw Star with our tourism magazine. And so with that tourism magazine, we pay $400. And so within that $400, we get a few cases of the magazine. We get our feature on the cover and then the inner cover and a glorious message from council, which I'm looking forward to your feedback and input on.
Sorry, Loretta, you asked me to write one of those sometime.
I asked you all to.
I was gonna say.
So I
You know
think
what?
it's due in around April.
I actually went on to the website the other day to see if you had
Yeah,
posted
that's
anything
great
from
too.
anybody else, and I went, oh my god.
It's a whole lot of basic information.
Perfect.
I'm gonna start searching town websites.
Well, I was gonna put long walks on the beach in my bio, but I thought that might be inappropriate.
Welcome to Gimli.
The Go East campaign is a good one. I'm just not sure, I'm not sure who would be the closest community that is part of this from us. Because mostly it's on the highway, I think it's on the highway
Forest.
14 and 6, well, I don't know about 16, but
Calgary,
14 for
area,
sure.
Calgary and southern Alberta, northeast communities, east communities, southeast communities.
Yeah, Boomtown Trail's nothing anymore.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
This reminds me.
Yeah, this one's been going on a lot longer though. It's not new. Yeah, Go East has been around for quite a long time. And I know that the communities on Highway 14 do really well. They really like it. Because we're no longer part of, what's the other one? The other, it's out of Camrose. Braid.
Oh, yes,
Battle
okay.
River
Oh,
Association for
development.
Economic Development, yeah.
Didn't see a
So.
whole lot of value out of that either.
No, well, and they still exist, but I haven't seen anything that really strikes me.
Well, they
So
promote
if you look-
agriculture a
Yeah,
lot.
they do
They've got a
promote
lot of
that.
agriculture
If you look at
promotion.
this map here,
So they show you the numbers.
there is Highway 13, which is Camrose East,
Yeah.
as being the southern of all of the eastern highway stretches,
You see, I think they're just including us because we're in the county,
right?
and I'm not sure it's really as much value for us as it is for those other communities on those highway corridors.
Yeah.
Because that's where mostly they promote, right?
Yeah, we would definitely be a fringe.
Yeah, I think we would be fringe for sure.
Well, and then on this page, community and sticker station testimonials. There's listings from Forestburg Golf Course, Daysland Golf Course,
Which
and
are,
Viking Golf Course. But
which are all kind of on that Highway 13.
corridor, yeah.
Yeah,
So, and what was the cost of it anyway?
Well, there's staggered costs, right? Just being a member is $200, I believe, for us. No, it's more.
What is it?
It's $400.
Oh, yeah.
That's just membership, and then that actual sticker thing,
Mhm.
there was a distinct cost for that, which I believe you're too late to join in on anyways.
450 plus $150 prize.
Yeah, so that's an additional thing you can do.
Actually, you know what, this might be something to consider next year, if we're interested, I think we've got some of our own to do anyway, like our website needs to improve and a bunch of things, I'd like to see us do some money into those right now instead of maybe look at this again next year, the year after.
Well, and
Because-
when was the deadline? You said February? or
Yeah, I
something,
saw
Tyler?
that because you forwarded this from the village to know, right?
Yeah,
and it was the end of February, so my read is, I don't know if it's good, I actually follow these guys on my
Yes,
socials, and I get spammed by them, it's actually hilarious how many, like, oh, I didn't know that's the thing.
Yeah,
So I think they're effective.
they are.
The problem I have is I don't know that it's necessarily beneficial for us. So from my standpoint, I know we're doing strategic planning at some point. To me, it would be interesting to see what type of economic developments are planned
I agree with you.
and get input from, you know, the golf course, restaurants, whatever, and see if this is something that they could see benefiting from and take the lead from them.
So I know the chamber had initially started working with Sarah and Ben as part of Storybrokers to have them do little videos for all of the different businesses around town so that we could kind of have an interactive map where you could click onto the different businesses or amenities or things like that. Unfortunately, it really didn't get off the ground. I think they only got 3 videos.
The chamber's not very responsive because I tried to, by the way, I should give you a copy now because I've upgraded all of the contact information for all of the businesses
Yeah.
as much as
oh,
I can.
nice.
So I've got
Yeah,
that,
that
I'll
would
send
be
it to you
great.
digitally, but the reality is they just don't respond. It doesn't matter what you give them, they don't respond.
No, and I'm fully aware of that.
I know because you've done it, you should do it. Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't handle the email account, so I don't see any of that kind of stuff. So I mean, I think that there's opportunities for us to do some of that promotional stuff within the town. I think it just maybe needs to have another group or whatnot.
Well, and I know
Kind of.
in the past with the chamber, we tried to do a dual thing
Yeah.
where put in a business license bylaw. And it wasn't considered for policing, it was just to get updated contact information annually.
Yeah.
And have a really minimal fee of whatever, $20 or something. And we thought about putting it in tandem with a chamber membership and, you know, a portion to cover an administrative person so that we could have, the nice thing is we could generate email lists and stuff for all the businesses and connectivity for
I
the,
have that now for you.
and then also with regards to, you know, parades where we'd be sending a parade invites out, where us as a town, thanks to Loretta's help, would send out just to the dignitaries, right? Where we would expand and, you know, do that piece and whatnot, but it really kind of wasn't picked up really or received really well, and it just fell
And I
flat.
don't think it's that that's just ignoring. I just think that nobody actually sees that as it's my job to get that done,
Yes.
right? And so I think maybe if I agree with Kyle, if we do a strategic plan and then talk about that,
Yeah.
maybe we can
Yeah.
include them and look at something down the road.
Yeah, and Juan, how do we go about getting, you know, the resources in place for the administrative
Yeah.
aspects, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the biggest challenge with the chamber and.
For sure, because they're all trying to run their businesses, so.
One of the big benefits of Go East actually isn't, we're not equipped for it because it generates traffic to websites, whether it's business
It
websites
does,
or
yeah.
town
Yep.
And
websites.
we're not ready for that.
No.
And our town website is challenged.
it
It's
is.
outdated.
Yeah, it is updated. It is what it is, but even most of the businesses I think of in town, right, don't really have the web presence to
Yeah.
benefit from it. I mean, I have extensive experience as part of a DMO and it's probably the best DMO I can for you. It's really the best DMO in Alberta, that's the Canadian Badlands. And, you know, as a delegate at their conventions and stuff for many years, I can say that DMO has the benefit of huge recognition. And you go to Denelda, you see the sign, right? You start heading south, you know you're in the Badlands. And that's one of my complaints with Go East is you have no idea that you're in their zone unless you live on social media. And so my experience in tourism, I did a decade of it, you know, running a private sector investment of over $1 million. Is that those items, like those big signs, those carry prestige, and the prestige matters a lot more than a social media footprint. Despite, you know, their 2 million reach annually. And so I think I'm a little bit of a traditionalist in that sense where.
See, and I'm not.
Yeah, well, I am, which is interesting. But I saw the impact of the actual physical infrastructure. I mean, obviously the Canadian Badlands is very strong digitally as well. But that's a concern I have, is that this organization doesn't map up with my experience of, again, arguably the most extensive and best recognized DMO. And so from my standpoint, it's nice to see the rates, it's nice to see everything. It's a maybe in the future, but I don't see it right now.
Well, and this just caught my eye here. It says their YouTube talks about the 5 highway road trip. And so if you look at that map shows the 5 highways. Oh, wait, it doesn't show 21. It's not gonna.
Yeah, well, and like Kyle, to be fair, Kyle's not wrong. Traditional, right now in the world, I believe we have a group of young people coming up that are always on social media. So that is where they're going to find their information, but we still have a lot of people who are not, like Brian. And so he needs to look at paper, and he needs to be able to see a sign on the sidewalk, or I mean on the highway. So I think until then, we've got to do both.
I mean, I had a lady walk in the store today and she's like, I had no idea you had plants in here. And she's like, I had no idea you've done the greenhouse. I'm about to do my 3rd year of it. Like, how do you not know?
Yeah,
Spread the word.
but that's why, because we assume everybody gets social media, but they don't. So, yeah. Anyway, I agree. And I'd like to make a motion that we accept it as information, please.
Just gonna be on Public Works and then you're on social
All in
media
favor?
all the time.
Right,
Carry.
exactly. I was positive.
Committee and staff reports.
We get to attend a special meeting of council.
Okay, that's true.
I had a phone call with Chief Leonard standing on the road on March 11th about planning a meeting between the Musqueam Chiefs Tribal Council, or the MCTC, and us. He's gonna talk to them and try to figure out some dates and get back to us.
Excellent.
He said it's not anything too heavy. We don't need an agenda for the first meeting. It's just
More or less.
getting to know each other and try to find some common ground.
Nice, I like it.
Yep. It was a great conversation. I was at a special meeting of council on the 15th. And on the 16th, I was at the Central Alberta Mayors and Reeves meeting. One of the things they talked about was the Green Municipal Fund. They give out grants totaling $250 million a year. And it's done through the FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So
Worth looking into.
The president of the FCM is Mayor Mike Yargo from Penhold.
Gotcha.
He said it's-
That's why.
He said it so fast, I was lucky to catch the mic part. One of the other things that Mike was saying, they've got a Citizens on Patrol program in Penhold that is citizen driven. And it might be worth looking into to see if we
Actually,
can.
people talk about that on social media, haven't we?
Somebody's done the research.
Yeah.
I've offered to help anyone that would like to set
saw
one up,
that.
and yet
He's offered multiple times. I've
multiple
seen that.
offers.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's a good idea, nobody wants it.
I'm happy to do the paperwork for it. I'm really good at it.
What's involved with that? Is it like a patrol?
Do I get a jacket?
That's, that would be whether we show up or not.
Well, yeah, it depends. I mean, my experience with Citizens on
Reflective one.
Patrol is not drum color, and it's done in partnership with the RCMP, and there, I believe they did weekend shifts, right? It was Friday nights, Saturday nights, and I want to say there's another night based on, you know, business acting like a club or something, like a Thursday. And basically, you know, you volunteer and it's, well, I wanna say it was about a 5-hour shift, something like that. Each local organization kind of sets its own mandate. They go through the Alberta Citizens on Patrol for insurance and things like that, and for governance structures, so we kind of follow their model. But really, I mean, it's just a society, right? So the directors can determine the need in consultation with the RCMP. Of course, that's the vital piece. And yeah, it's a really interesting look into your community. It's, you know, if you're really involved in or want to be involved in what your local police do, I think it's a valuable organization. But I think if it were to be initiated in this town, the first conversation would need to be with our local RCMP and to see what they view the need as, and what they can and can't support. And from there, I mean, you work with other groups to try and work through it, but you have to do the paperwork. And if no one's willing to do the paperwork, I as an individual, I'm not going to form a society.
It's not much different than road crime watch, it's
Yeah.
just done in the community.
It takes.
Somebody has to decide that it's important and stand up and. I think it comes up every time somebody wants to complain. Every single time, and so every single time that's an offer, and then everybody quits talking about it till the next time that they're just gonna talk about it again.
And then I copy and paste my message from the time
Yeah.
before.
Yeah,
It's kind of like the weather. Everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it.
exactly. Exactly. We could have stopped the storm yesterday.
Mhm. One other little bit of a warning from Penhold and Red Deer. They've seen a number of posters getting put up in their communities, advertising for a hate group.
Oh,
So something to watch out for.
oh.
They say advertising for furnace duct cleaning.
It's on social
Yeah, I
media.
take those off of social, off of communities page.
They really suck.
Oh, but they're not only that, there's lots of scams.
I caught it, I didn't duck.
It was a terrible joke. They deserved it.
Don't encourage me.
It's so bad. It's the sort of joke I would tell.
You want the
So
bill
what
too?
kind of, like,
That's all I know.
okay, hate groups, interesting, okay. Interesting.
Ag Society had a meeting on the 14th. I was unable to make it. I was coming home from Saskatchewan that day, but I talked to Karen. And they had one of the constables there talking about the break-in that they had into the pavilion. A number of trailers got ransacked or rifled through. There was a couple trailers that had some stuff missing. Loretta probably knows more about this than I do.
No, you.
My worthless stuff got rifled through and snubbed.
Yeah, I did too, but nothing was taken.
Not even my ratchet stuff.
Well, would you put something valuable in next time?
Well, ours was the show committee trailer and all it had was kids' toys and stuff, and I obviously didn't want that, so they were done.
My collection of rat traps might be hidden. So they're putting up some cameras and lights, motion activated. Yeah. And that's all I did.
I think you also were at a town hall meeting, your worship.
Oh, yes, I was also at a town hall meeting with MP Kirk on Friday.
Thursday.
Thursday. And yeah, that was a good meeting. There was a lot of questions asked.
Was there a large group?
He said about what, 25?
Yeah.
Wow.
25.
It was I was there early and, you know, I was helping set out a few chairs and we kind of went, wow. I think we're starting to get optimistic here and then ended up meeting a few more, so.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, he thought it was good.
Now I'm out of things that I did. Other than just You are next, Deputy Mayor Gust.
I was at a BDSS meeting at 5 o'clock this afternoon, and unfortunately I could not stay because I had a town council meeting at 6 o'clock. So I stayed as long as I could. They just went over the financials, and she did mention the collaboration with the Youth Foundation, but again, it was not a lot of specifics.
Good to have you back.
It's welcome. But it's never gone.
Counselor Norby.
I have not attended a formal meeting other than, the rec board has called a meeting now, so we will be having one in next month. And the library meeting is on Monday, this coming up. I had a meeting with MP Kirk as well. And one of the things we talked about was the fact that our small rural communities apply for federal grants and are almost never successful. And so he was going to, he's asked for a couple of things. Number one, that we would send our applications to him and he would give us a letter of support. He said sometimes that holds a little bit more weight. But his assistant in his office, his local office, said that the feds will look at every line of their guide. And if you miss one line, like you don't, because you don't do it, but you don't put anything in there, they'll toss it and say it's incomplete. So good to know that, because even if you put not applicable, at least it's something,
You
right?
answered it.
Yeah. So so anyway, he, you know, obviously we have a liberal government, not a conservative government, so he doesn't have as much pull as he would otherwise, but he was really, he loved the model. He, in his travels, he would like to talk to other communities about our model.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and yeah, so it was really good. It was a good meeting. It was about an hour. Christine and I met with him, so that was good. We also had a meeting Wednesday afternoon with Minister Luan, Social Services. I think I just spoke about that last time. And yeah, I think that's it.
Counselor Oram.
Well, I had a special meeting of council on the 15th, and then on the 16th, I had a youth foundation meeting. And I think the big highlight of that is the partnership with BDSS.
The what?
Right, I know, brand new information.
I haven't heard of it before now.
And I think the other big thing that came out of it is that there's going to be some events taking place through spring break, and they're looking at putting together an Easter event, and there will be kind of a spring Mother's Day fundraiser coming up, so stay tuned for that. It's got a wonderful wheelbarrow that's part of the donation.
Nice.
I can tell you that much.
Extra large.
It is. It's in my way. Yep, that's it for me.
Counselor McIntosh.
Just special meetings. Everything else qualifies as a teacher, though I did get to see Damien twice in 1 week. Unfortunately, that's not council business. So we'll just call it a special meeting and call her good.
Orman Taylor.
So, trying to mix it up a little bit. Before I get started with my spreadsheets, there's a mistake here under the arena ice removal. I originally put March 21st. Well, that's today and it's still in, so things got pushed. So I'm hoping early next week that we can start pulling that out. So back to the spreadsheet. I thought I'd give you a little bit more detail list of the things that were what Public Works is up to, give you some start dates, and things that we've accomplished. Obviously, nothing on this as of yet, but going forward, this will give you an idea of the things that we're up to, how long it's taken, a little bit description of if delays or whatever, and completion dates of pretty much most of the facilities here in Public Works that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So
That's excellent.
Mhm.
I like, and you show what your priorities are.
yeah, so then that's up for debate as well, because you could also say, well, what about this or what about that?
Well, and I know in the past, there's like annual things that occur and stuff and whatnot, or the water meter replacement is a really great example where, yeah, we were pushing through and getting things done. We changed our last water meter beginning of December.
Yeah,
But with that process, we fast realized that winter and cold weather is not the most optimal time to be changing them. So
Really?
we've opted to put it off
yeah,
till,
yeah.
the ground is a little more thawed in the event that we, have any additional water breaks, but don't get me started on that. But I know for myself, I find it helpful because Patrick shares with me daily of what the activities are, and like our lift stations and the pumps and things like that. He has been working hours and hours and hours on, and sure, it doesn't look like much when you see it in a tiny little report, but when you put it in this broad scheme of things of, okay, we're dealing with a moving horizon here of activities, it's ongoing. And it's tricky as well because the public look around and have an imminent need that they
Always.
feel that there's a failure on, right? Where this gives you an idea of all the things that are on the docket and what we're prioritizing and we're working on getting done, right? And so it's kind of like a duck above the water.
Yeah, so a lot of these are things that happen yearly. But there are things that, like Teresa had talked about, like the lift station upgrades and maintenance to those, the water treatment plant, the things that we're dealing with, that line breaks and stuff, so it'll give you a little bit more detail. I hope, and you can see where these are spent.
Well, I think it's actually a staggering list, not a tiny list. I mean,
This is small at the moment. I have a lot more to add.
Well, I look forward to seeing the rest of it, because when I think about how small your crew is and I look at all those items, I go, I don't know that I'd ever get 3 of them done. So it's quite impressive.
Well, I know for myself, I drive around, I wave at you lots throughout the day. You and your team are always on the go and always busy, so I see that firsthand. And you guys are doing a great job.
I would say, at least according to my public place of employment, there's not as much complaining as I used to hear. I'm not hearing hardly any, actually. So I don't know if you still are, but we're not.
Snow related.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll sit at
of
my
course,
desk.
yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the week and what's going on in Bashaw that week, that people are going to complain about,
Sure.
why isn't this happening now?
Right.
And those are, they're out of my control. The only thing I can do is just come in and do the best I can.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And
Yeah, totally.
you're always going to have somebody that's,
Want something else done.
Yeah.
at the same time.
yeah.
Can I just briefly ask about the Nordic controls at the community hall? I know that was the situation you addressed last time, or they
Yeah,
sorted it out?
so the conversation I had was, yes. It is dealt with, but I still need to get the cleaning and stuff done, which can happen.
Well, and that's a tricky one because that's the cleaning in the daycare.
It is the
area, right?
daycare, yeah.
And from what I can ascertain or understand of, like, I know the
You
main
would have
hall,
to shut down.
the main hall, for
daycare.
example, there's
move it
basically
over.
an airspace
Yeah.
where you have your suspended ceiling like this, and then there's an airspace where they force the air through that airspace. So that's where, I don't know if the, like the suspended ceiling above the daycare, if it's the same thing. So basically, in essence, what's going on is that the heat is blown through this open suspended ceiling airspace. So I don't know how you clean that.
So originally, I think what happened was the louvers in the HVAC unit wasn't functioning
Oh, okay.
properly. And the filters were removed. And so in the summertime, you had straight dust blowing in, and I think you get the wind in that corner, and it just constantly blew right into that one unit mostly. And part of the problems with the firing and the controller,
units.
the controllers giving us the grief that they have been giving us is because of that directional wind and stuff. And so once they got it fired up and running properly, now you're actually seeing the remnants of that is pushing through the ductwork, and you can see it around the vents. So,
And Nordic, as far as I'm aware, doesn't do that type of.
no, they
cleaning, so
don't
we're
do
Still
that.
looking for a contractor
Yeah.
that has the capability.
Well, I had a couple come in and they looked at it and they're like,
I'm sure Jackie has some recommendations from Facebook.
well, even we just had the we just had the office done, so I'm like, well, maybe this guy, but you know, industrial or commercial is a lot different, you know, the process is a lot different, liability is a lot different. And I think with the daycare, you would have to like move them out of the way and
Have to close them down for a
Yeah.
while or something.
so it's gonna require some planning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He's counting the paint.
They're reminiscing over there. Good old Stantec stories.
Yeah. Sitting there and when they were doing the addition and telling us about all how energy efficient the building was gonna be, and Brian and I are looking up at the new roof and going, well, there's no insulation,
Yeah.
nothing, it's just bare metal. And they tried to justify it, saying that, well, by adding up everything, well, there's the gravel and the tar on top, that's an R value, but the paint on the underside has an R value, and they still weren't coming out of anywhere close to the R40 that they promised.
Did she make them put it in?
Apparently it wasn't in the contract, so we had to pay extra. It was not in the.
Wow.
Who creates a building?
A building has a story.
God, screwed 6 ways from Sunday on that building. Anyway, Teresa.
Basically, the arena access for homeschooling is basically sitting on the docket to do. Outstanding from prior meetings, the flush truck, Roseland has expressed an interest in a new truck and continuing agreement. Both will be discussing it. However, they've expressed their do not tend to access the unit. If the unit had a boiler on it with the potential to use it in the wintertime, they may be interested. So I'm just waiting to hear back from them and their dialogue with their council and stuff, their administration. They had a very serious incident that occurred in their community and has set their operations back a smidge, so. The Canadian National Railway crossing maintenance arrangements to meet with CN. And interestingly enough, I did come across a grant actually for CN related or crossing related, but it seems that the main or the gist of the funding is for additional warning systems or high tech, measuring how much traffic and things like that versus regular maintenance. So, but we'll still circle around and get a dialogue booked with them. The waste removal contract, basically went through it with them, but what they're proposing and some changes for some of our commercial properties. We may have to do some evaluation of the bylaw to improve things or align with what they're proposing. The council schedule, we still have the MDP, municipal development plan, and the intermunicipal collaboration framework and the strategic plan. So those, so far we got the IDP done. Nice job. Emergency preparedness, I have Loretta helping me out with updating the documents, and meetings wise, the special or additional meeting of council on March 15th, March 17th, I was out of the office, and then just been working on various email communications and ongoing interactions, walk-in meetings, training staff, ongoing phone calls, and research regarding development. And we continue to have a staff public works absent. We did one interview, however, the candidate wasn't suitable. The arena schedule is winding down, and we have staff booked till around the 21st. And we've got another staff application that we've received, so we're planning to interview them. And if they're not suitable, we'll continue to run another ad and refurbish our ad a bit more. Administratively, ongoing preparation for tax notices, tax recovery contacts, and various phone-in inquiries, and a budget sometime in my spare time. Continue to provide information in preparation for the financial statement presentation.
Excellent. Could I have a motion to accept those as information?
It's my turn.
Thank you, Cindy. All in favor? Carried. Item 9.1, lovely letter from Minister McIver.
Well, I've read the letter, and it's just the long answer to him saying no that I heard at the telephone town hall. I don't think there are any surprises unless you read the ECA review and you're another municipality that was shocked their funding was going down. So I will move to accept the correspondence from the minister.
Thank you, Kyle. All in favor? Carried. Item 10. Was meeting of council.
I move we enter into a closed meeting of council to discuss legal and appropriate communication of threatening nature for section 27 at 8:34 p.m.
Thank you, Kyle. All in favor? Carried.
Oh,
No, you can head out and I'll record the motion coming out.
thank you.
See you.
Thank you, Loretta.
Yes, thank you very much.
See you later.